Hello, and welcome to the Confidence Academy podcast. My name is Lilli and I am a transformational confidence coach helping amazing people to thrive in spite of their anxiety. Each week, I will be sharing a brand new episode, giving you inspiration and motivation, as well as tangible steps you can take to manage your anxiety better. There will also be interviews with guest experts from around the world who have not only overcome their own anxiety, but who now help others to do the same. I believe that having anxiety doesn't mean you can't live an epic life. If you would like more support with this, please head on over to lillibadcock.com and check out the free resources I've created for you. But for now, let's get you on your way to living your epic life anxiety-free. And remember, confidence is yours as soon as you choose it. Hello and welcome to the Confidence Academy podcast. This is the first of our Sunday night Q&A sessions, and I am Lilli Badcock, if you don't already know, and I'm joined by Sophia. So for those of you on the live feed, if you wonder who this child is sat on my lap, that's who she is. She's actually featured on every single podcast episode there has been since she was born back in March. So you'll have probably heard her chattering away or making her cute little baby noises in the background. So I decided that I was going to do a weekly Q&A session, and actually this is something I've been wanting to do for a long time, just because I see questions all the time coming in on social media, and I try my best to answer them when I can, but I sometimes find it difficult to type the responses. I often find it much easier to speak the responses, just to say them, because the answers come from my heart and my soul. And when I get on one, they tend to spill forward quite quick, and it can be quite hard when I'm typing it out. I tend to self-edit a lot, and then you sort of lose the magic a little bit. So I thought I would start these weekly sessions. It means I can hold space for anyone who needs it, anyone who's feeling a bit low, anyone who's feeling like they could do with a bit of a confidence boost. If anxiety is getting you down, if you have any questions about building up confidence, self-esteem, anything like that, that's what these sessions are for. And it's my intention to create this space, a very supportive place where you can come, ask your questions, get your answers. And there are a number of ways that you can submit your questions. So first of all, you can show up live. So this episode is being broadcast currently on my Facebook business page, which is under the heading The Confidence Academy. And if you're listening on the podcast, I will put a link in all of the show notes to these pages that I'm mentioning. So you can show up live each week with your questions. You can interact with me, type your questions in the chat box, and I'm happy to answer them, and it's not a problem. If I lose you, by the way, on the video, it's because Sophia has hit a button. She's at that age now where she likes to push things, and she looks like she might hit a button at any point, so I'm just giving you a warning. So you can show up live, as I was saying, every Sunday 8 p.m, that's UK time, in the Confidence Academy business page, or you can submit your questions. So if you're joining me for the first time today and you don't have a question yet, but maybe something comes to you in the week, you can submit a question either by emailing me at lillibadcock@gmail.com or by private messaging me through Facebook, either on my personal page or on my business page. You can also post up in the Confidence Academy podcast Facebook group. Again, I'll pop a link in the show notes, and you can type your question there. If you would prefer to do it anonymously, then by all means send me a private email or a private message. Make sure you make it clear that your question is anonymous, and then I will not say your name and I won't share anything about you. I will literally just give the question as a generic question, and then I will give the answer as a generic answer. So now we've got all that set up and clear. Hopefully that was clear as mud and you guys know how this is going to work. I'm going to crack on with today's question. So the question is, are you trying to force positivity? Now, the inspiration for this question came from a Facebook group that I'm in specifically for anxiety sufferers. So there are a lot of people in there that are suffering from anxiety, depression, stress, overwhelm, and lots of other similar things. And somebody had put a post up saying that they felt completely exhausted because they were constantly trying to feel positive. They were constantly forcing that feeling of positivity. And they were just asking, was anybody else feeling that way? And straight away I resonated with that, because that's definitely something that I have done and still do, if I'm really honest. And I think we all do. And I think especially now, because in this current time where there's a lot more conversation happening about mental health, there are a lot more resources at our fingertips for spiritual growth and, and dealing with these kinds of things, which is awesome. But I do feel like there is a lot of advice out there, which is, put a smile on it, turn that frown upside down, like put a brave face on it, power through. It's almost like you shouldn't be real with your feelings. It's almost like you should put a mask on instead. And I think that advice is well meant. And I've certainly given that advice in the past. And actually, when I was first struggling with anxiety, that was my go-to solution. I just thought, well, I'll ignore the fact that I feel anxious and I'll just power through and be happy all the time. But what that actually ended up doing was I started to create almost an alter ego, or like a persona, for the rest of the world. And because of social media, it's so key. People feel like it's so easy to create that, because you can put up a profile, you can choose your photographs, you can select what you post, you can really filter it, you can really edit it, and actually a lot of what you see on social media isn't real. And so I got into this habit of constantly putting out these over the top, really enthusiastic, happy posts, because A, I thought that that's what people wanted to hear, and B, it enabled me to hide from what I was truly dealing with, which were at times very dark and scary thoughts. The baby has just pulled the headphones off my head. Can I just say, if you are new to this podcast or new to me, it's very, very common for children to commandeer these live streams and these episodes. So whilst we've got Sophia trying to type into the chat box and pull headphones off my head, we also have Freddie here, who should be in bed because it's a school night. So please excuse me while I find out what Freddie would like. Sorry about that. That happens a lot around here. I thought if I chose 8 p.m. on a Sunday night, for sure they would be in bed. No, I was wrong. But this is real life, folks. Anyway, as I was saying, hi Simon, thanks for joining. Cheryl says, hi Lily, this is something I was thinking today. Yeah, I think it's very common. I think people feel like they have to put a brave face on it. And that's certainly what I was doing. And I was doing it through Facebook posts, but also I was doing it in real life. And what I found started to happen was I started to create this monster of a persona. And it became harder and harder and harder to live up to this persona that I'd created. It became more and more stressful, and I felt more and more alone as a result of it, because I literally felt like nobody could understand what I was going through, because I wasn't telling anybody. I felt like nobody would believe me even if I did speak up about it, because I'd done such a good job of papering over the cracks, and hiding how I truly felt from the world. And it became extremely lonely, and it actually caused a lot of anxiety off the back of that, because when I had to go out and maybe teach a group or see anybody, I felt this enormous pressure to be switched on. And if I was having a particularly bad day, I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how I was going to do it. And then the weird thing was, the minute I got in front of anybody, it's like the mask would just fall on my face and I would just snap into it. And it's like when you do that, it spends your energy even faster, because it's an effort. You're not relaxed. You're not being yourself. You're not in flow, and you're not just allowing what is. You're constantly, like, every single thing before it comes out of your mouth, you're like filtering it in your head, and you're thinking, oh, can I say it like that? Oh no, I probably can't. I should probably put it this way. And some of that came from my desire to make other people comfortable. I didn't want people to be uncomfortable, and I certainly didn't want anyone feeling sorry for me. So I felt like I was doing that because, I didn't want people to feel bad, and I didn't want people to worry. So there was a little bit of that. And then the other thing was, I think, if I'm honest, I just wasn't ready to face up to what was actually going on. which was, yeah, as Simon's just said, hiding behind a crocodile smile. Exactly. And I think so many of us do this. Now, I want to say from the beginning, I'm not saying that you are wrong if you're doing that, because I fully understand that that is a coping mechanism and that sometimes that's how you get through your day. So this isn't about shaming anybody, and this isn't about making it right or making it wrong. This is purely about shining a light on it and opening up the conversation to say, is that truly the best way that you can be spending your energy? And is there another way? And what I found, I don't know what it was, and I don't know what happened, but at some point, I just got really tired of hiding. And I felt really lonely. And I guess I realized on some level that it wasn't working and it wasn't serving me. And I do remember the first time I was honest with somebody, and I can't even remember who it was, but I know I was speaking to somebody and I just blurted out that I'd been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. And what I did not expect was, first of all, they were clearly relieved when I said it. Like a wave had come over them, their whole body relaxed. And they instantly said, "Oh my goodness, you deal with that. Yeah, me too." And then they started to share what they'd been going through. And so in that moment, I realized that I wasn't alone at all, that sharing my experience wasn't a bad thing, that nothing terrible was going to happen. I remember feeling, before I did this, I remember thinking frequently, if people actually knew the real me, then they wouldn't want to know. You know, they'd run a mile. If people actually knew what I was like, then they wouldn't want to know. And that was something that my monkey mind or ego or whatever you want to call it would love to say to me on a daily basis. If people really knew you, they wouldn't want to know. You know, those people wouldn't be friends with you if they knew what you were really like. These people wouldn't want to work with you if they knew what you were really like. You know, I had real fear that I was going to lose people if I dared to show who I really was. So I remember likening this to Jekyll and Hyde. I felt like Jekyll and Hyde. I felt like two completely different people. And even my husband, because obviously my husband sees all sides of me. There are some people you can't hide from, and he's one of them. And he used to say, people don't know what you're really like. They don't see the real you. All they see is this happy, bouncy, bubbly side of you. And that's a huge part of me, don't get me wrong. But of course it's not the only side. And it's not the only side for anybody. None of us are one-dimensional. We all have these, multi faces to us, which is what makes us beautiful, actually. And what I learned was, the minute I started sharing the true me, the minute I started being very true to who I was and speaking my truth, I got a lot closer to the very people that I was afraid of losing. And I don't think I've actually lost anyone as a result of sharing for my anxiety. And if I have, then I haven't noticed. And obviously they couldn't have been that important in the first place. So, I honestly don't think I lost anybody. And if anything, it really solidified a lot of relationships that I'm now very fond of, and people that I'm very close to, and relationships that I treasure dearly, all came about when I dropped the mask and when I was like, do you know what? This is me. This is who I am. Cheryl says, can I ask, what is the best way that you show honesty in Facebook posts with having vulnerability but still keeping it upbeat? My fear is how to open to my Facebook page. Okay. So my answer to that is, first and foremost, you have to do what... I want to be careful. I was going to say you have to do what feels comfortable, but I don't actually believe that, because my belief, the way I use my social media, is I have chosen to be fully authentic and open and honest. However, having said that, there are obviously things that I choose not to share, because that's my prerogative. It's still my life. I'm still allowed to keep things private. But if you are going through something and you feel like sharing that is going to help you first, and then by default the people who read it or watch it, whether it's a video or a post, then the way that you share is you just share from your heart. I think I was able to start sharing when I actually had what I felt was a solution. So I will share what I'm going through. If I'm having a crappy day, I'm going to tell you about it. But then I'm going to tell you how I'm dealing with it. You know, my posts are, I don't think my posts are ever just, oh, I feel like shit today, the end. It's more like, I woke up and this is how I felt. And then this is the action that I took, whatever that may be. So I almost coach myself through my social media, if that makes sense. I look at myself almost like another person. It's almost like if it was my best friend asking for help, or a client, or anybody that I know, what advice would I give them? Because if somebody you really cared about rang you up and said, oh God, I'm really sad today, what do I do? You wouldn't tell them just to sit with it and it's tough, but we tell ourselves that all the time. So that's why I find it useful to imagine that I'm speaking to someone that means a lot to me. And then I will coach myself through social media. And I find that in sharing my posts honestly, it's almost, even just writing the post is cathartic for me. So it all came about, I would write it in a journal. I journal. I'm not going to say every day because I don't, but I journal most days, and I definitely journal on the days where I'm struggling. And I have journals all over the house. They're not in any sort of order. I don't even know what system I've got over here. There's journals in my bags, by my bed. There's a journal right next to me here. I'm holding it up if you're on the video. There are literally journals everywhere. And I just find it useful to write out how I'm feeling. And then beyond that, I then ask myself questions as if I was giving myself some kind of therapy session. So I just will question the negative thoughts. So I guess what I'm saying is, I guess the whole point of this episode is, you don't need to force positivity. It's not necessary. It's not necessary for you, and it's not necessary for the world. And it's not conducive either. I don't think it's the best way to help yourself. Because to me, it's a bit like, what's a good analogy for this? It's a little bit like breaking your arm and wrapping a bandage around it yourself, right? Not going and getting a plaster or anything that's actually going to heal the bone, but just putting like a plaster on it so that it looks fixed. It's a bit like, just forcing that positivity. It's like numbing what's real. And I actually believe, in order to thrive in spite of your anxiety, and in order to maybe even overcome it, you have to get comfortable with your feelings. You have to allow them. You're a human being. You've been given a whole range of emotions and a whole range of things that you're able to think and feel. And when you shut any one of those down, you actually shut everything down. You stop the flow. And life is all about flow. So my advice is not to paper over the cracks, at least not for the long term. Like I said at the top of the call, if that's what you have to do to get through the next 10 minutes or the next 24 hours or whatever, then you do you. You have to choose what's best for you, of course. But if you are wondering how you can actually make a start to feeling better about your anxiety and at least thriving in spite of it, or like I said, maybe even overcoming it, then one of the first things is turning and facing these feelings, no longer hiding from them. Don't be scared to face up to how you're feeling, because your feelings are like your inner GPS system. They're actually telling you something you need to know. And if you're feeling anxious, I believe it's because you're out of alignment. You've lost sight of how beautiful you are. You've forgotten how powerful you are. And all of your focus has just gone to what isn't working in your life. And the thing is, the more you focus on something like that, the more it seems to come back to you. You just create more and more of that. And of course, you're not creating it really, because there's always both to see. But when you choose to focus on the negativity, you just find more negativity. That's the thing. So you can just choose to shift that focus. And instead of thinking, oh God, I have to be happy and upbeat and I have to put a face on it, instead ask yourself, how am I feeling? How am I really feeling? And why do I feel like that? Now, one thing you'll find useful or interesting even is, if you're going to ask yourself, why do I feel like this? You may not actually know. And that's because some of your reactions will just be habits that you've learned. You know, a lot of anxiety is actually just a habit we've learned. It's based on something that was fearful at one point, something that frightened us at one point, or something that wasn't good for us at one point. We've remembered that in our muscle memory, and we see something that seems similar, and so we just go through the motions. We create the same response. And actually, when you question it, so if you were to say, oh, I feel anxious today. Okay, what are you feeling anxious about? Well, I don't know. Why do I feel anxious? That in itself could shift you. But maybe you know why you're anxious. Maybe you're going to say, oh, well, I'm anxious because I'm starting a new job today. Or somebody new is coming into my workplace and I'm anxious about meeting them. Or maybe I'm talking to a friend I haven't spoken to in a while. Or like whatever it is that's making you anxious. And then ask yourself, why am I anxious about that? And you can do this through meditation. You can just sit and let these thoughts come and go. Or you can write it in a journal. I find writing is very powerful and helpful, so that's what I prefer to do. But, you know, you do what's good for you. You do what feels right for you. And the whole point being that instead of shutting off those feelings and trying to ignore them, you're just going to stop and go, okay, yeah, what? You know, why are you here? What am I actually supposed to get from this? You know, what's the message you're bringing? And when you write that down, you'll be surprised what comes out in your journaling. So to sum this up, and before I open it up to Q&A for anyone that's on live with me right now, if you're trying to force positivity and it's not working for you, because by the way, if it's working, awesome. Like, I'm not going to tell you not to do it if it makes you feel better. But if you feel like every single day you're putting on a front and you're wearing a mask and it's starting to really wear you down and exhaust you, then maybe try some of these things that I've suggested in the call today. And by all means, let me know how that goes for you. Now, if you would like further support, I created a journaling program, like a mini program. It's free. So I'll pop a link in the show notes and you can sign up for that. You pop in your email address and your name, and then you'll get put onto a mailing list and you will be sent a journaling prompt every day for 7 days, and also a short audio from me to explain how to journal, so explain what to do with the prompts that I've sent you. And you can go through that for 7 days, and that will just give you a really good overview of how I journal and what I've learned. So I'm just untangling the child from the earphones. So if you would like to sign up for the journaling course, like I said, it's a free resource that I created, so click the link in the show notes. For those of you on the Facebook Live, I'll pop the link below in just a second. I was wondering if I could be very clever and find it now for you. I will do what I can. Let me see. I will see if I can find it right now. Right, while I'm finding this link, if anyone is on live with me right now and has a question, go ahead, type it in the chat box and let me know. Or if anything came up as a question from what I just said, if you are not sure about anything I said or have any questions around it, pop your comments below. Or if you are watching and you have some advice that you'd like to share with everybody that's on here, or that I can read out and obviously share with the people listening as well, then type that in the chat box as well. Oh, Sophia has something she'd like to add. That's very useful. Thank you, Sophia, for your input. So yeah, as I was saying at the beginning of this call, it's my intention to create a very safe space on these calls every week. Somewhere where you feel supported and where you feel seen and heard, where you feel comfortable to share what's on your mind and what you need help with. And so I'm fully open to people sharing their experience as well. I'm definitely not sat over here feeling like I'm the authority on this subject. I'm purely sharing from my point of view, and that's one point of view. So I think, you know, I quite often use the hashtag Together We Are Stronger because I fully believe that we are. I don't think anyone was put here to walk alone. I don't think anybody is supposed to have this figured out on their own. I feel like we all get to lift each other up, motivate each other, inspire each other through our own experiences. So if you are listening on the podcast, make sure you show up next Sunday at 8 p.m. for the session. Now, just before I go, I'm currently offering free one-to-one coaching calls in exchange for a testimonial. So if you are struggling with anything at the moment to do with confidence, self-esteem, anxiety, stress, overwhelm, anything like that, and you would like half an hour of my time to help you through it, then get in touch and I will send you a booking link. The calls are completely free, and as I said, just in exchange for a testimonial. This is a new level of the membership for the Confidence Academy that I'll be rolling out soon, where you can sign up for one-to-one coaching. So I'm just wanting to help as many people as possible and get some testimonials in exchange so that people can see what I offer and whether it might be good for them or not. So if you would like to sign up for one of those calls, you can click the link in the show notes if you're listening on the podcast, or send me a message at lillibadcock@gmail.com or privately through Facebook, and I will send you the booking link. But in the meantime, have a wonderful rest of the day wherever you are in the world. I'm sending you lots of love. I'll be back very, very soon with another podcast episode, and I'll be back next Sunday for another Q&A. Take care of yourselves. Lots of love. Bye-bye.